Beyond all the other benefits that we know about ketones, one of the main ones that is really, really interesting, and we're starting to see a lot of emerging research on, is the mood stabilizing properties that ketones themselves have. And so, not only does a ketogenic diet have mood stabilizing properties, but new studies are showing that that response is likely driven from ketones themselves, and they're doing studies with exogenous ketones seeing these same properties, working on certain neurotransmitters and receptors in the brain that have been shown to boost mood. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in our brain that we commonly refer to as like the happy hormone, right? So when we're feeling good, we get this huge rush of dopamine. And one of the things about being in a state of ketosis is it doesn't bring you to two highs, and it certainly doesn't bring you down like some of these other things that increase dopamine or mess with serotonin. Instead, it has ketones have mood stabilizing properties in the sense that they kind of balance out these neurotransmitters. And there was a recent study where they took exogenous ketones and injected them into mice, and they found that it actually helped stabilize some of these neurotransmitters in a mouse model of depression, where they were looking at these animals and they were able to increase some of this dopamine and allow them to stabilize their mood and increase their function, which is very, very promising. One of the things we know about exogenous ketones is not only are they a fuel source for the brain, but they're also signaling molecules, right? They're acting on certain aspects of our DNA, but they're also signaling various different cascades throughout our entire body, one of which we believe is neurotransmitters inside of the brain. And so one of the mechanisms by which ketones may be acting on some of these neurotransmitters and stabilizing mood and function is through this signaling cascade. So again, that's why it's really important to not only look at ketones as a fuel. It's one of the reasons that ketones aren't a supplement, they are a technology, because they're having so many different benefits, and not only providing a fuel source, not only acting on certain receptors of the brain to help with things like appetite regulation, but also having signaling cascades that may be contributing to some of this new and emerging research we're seeing with mood. Oftentimes when we're not eating good quality foods and often eating high amounts of sugar and carbohydrates, we often ride that roller coaster, right, of really high and really low. We get that sugar crash. Well, what happens when you get that sugar crash is you often get angry and you get irritated. And a lot of that could be due to depletion of things like serotonin and dopamine. A lot of it is because your blood sugar is low. Well, fortunately, we now have the access and the capability to provide an alternative source of fuel, right? We're able to fuel the brain in a much better way, not only from a fuel standpoint, but likely being able to balance out and help balance some of those neurotransmitters with the signaling effects that ketones can have. And so rather than having those huge ups and those huge downs, oftentimes we can mitigate those frustrations and that anger and some of those mood swings by allowing us to balance out those neurotransmitters, which has now been shown not only to be done with a ketogenic diet, but also with exogenous ketones. Previously, we've known that there's been a good amount of research on a ketogenic diet and things like just mood in general. And now, because of Prove It and the research and the explosion of ketones into the market, we're starting to see more research and more science on the benefits of ketones themselves on some of these other aspects of mood and things like anxiety. So again, it's really, really promising. Prove It's leading a lot of the innovation and a lot of the science forward, along with some of the research we're doing here at ASPI to allow people to figure out how to optimize that, right? If you don't want to go strictly on a ketogenic diet, can you still see some of those benefits with exogenous ketones? Or hey, what if you do both? Can it be synergistic? Can you do a ketogenic diet and supplement exogenous ketones on top of it to see an overall better result. And that's what we're continuing to study, and we will continue to see over the upcoming months and upcoming years as more and more research gets done.